Morning, everyone. I'm back with a bright and early, for me, as usual, episode. I'm feeling a bit too... I think my voice is in chilled radio mode. Today, we're going to cover Max Cooper, who is a particular favourite of mine. I make all sorts of music. Check it out if you like, under deepandbeeper.co.uk. Lots of links to stuff there. But recently I made I was re-inspired, make a change and try and make stuff a bit like Max Cooper. Not just him solely, rival consoles and some other artists as well. But yeah, I was just very inspired by such things as this album that you're listening to this that you're listening to this from, Yearning for the Infinite. I'm not going to natter on too long now, especially over top of the tune. But this is a track called Repetition. He's a great producer in so many ways. And yeah, this is one that definitely I advise you to watch the video for. Amazing video, like I like to advise sometimes. And check this tune out, how to do so much with so little. Yes. That was Parting Ways. If you've got a chance, I advise you go to YouTube for something else, which is his Live at the Barbican AV show. It's absolutely mind-blowing. If you just whack that on YouTube, if you've got a big TV in a dark room, I can't advise it enough. It's an experience and a half. I actually want to go and see one of his shows very much one day because of that. Moving on, we have a track, Parting Ways. This is again from Yearning for the Infinite, and it's another chilled affair. Bit of 4/4 bass, but as you can hear, this plinky plunky sound that pervades through the whole thing. And of course, lovely paddage, which is definitely one of his favourite things to put in tracks. Oh, I'll shut up. Here we go. title track there. So up next we have another one from the album Yearning for the Infinite. It's called Penrose Tiling. That's coming in a sec, and it's a bit more upbeat affair, definitely. And just if you're interested to know, Penrose Tiling is, I'm not going to explain it exactly because it's not easy to explain. I'm not even sure I understand, but it's a type of tile. Well, I understand vaguely, not like in totally. It's a type of way to tile planes, like as in you could just tile your floor, your bathroom, with funny different shapes and stuff. Yeah, here it comes in. Yeah, this one's a brutal track. I was just mentioning that because the album's called Yearning for the Infinite, and it's very mathematically what's the word? Mathematically inspired. The visual show and the names and stuff of the tracks, if not the music itself, which I was actually having a discussion with a very accomplished musician friend of mine the other day, who was pointing out that music isn't maths as much as you might think, and as he's a programmer as well, if anyone knows, it's him. I mean, it is a bit of maths, but it's not as mathematical as people think. Anyway, here's Penrose Tiling, which is mathematical, coming in now. This one's a kicker. was. Penrose Tiling. Growly at the end, wouldn't you say? Moving on, we have a track called Hall. It's the Max Cooper remix of, I believe, a track originally by Christian Loeffler. I don't know whether the original was by Christian Loeffler and Max Cooper, and then he did the remix, or whether the original was by Christian Loeffler and Max Cooper did the remix by himself. But this is possibly one of the most beautiful tunes I've heard in latest times. And that can be, not necessarily the easiest thing to pull off with synthesizers, IMHO. But this one is just super floaty. The haunting in a beautiful upbeat haunting way, if there's such a thing. I guess, not as in haunting as in sort of melancholic, scary haunting, but just beautifully ethereally haunting. I don't know if you can say ethereally. Check it out and I'll shut up because you're missing it. Here we go. It's Hall. does love to bring in the distortion at the end of the tunes. That harmonic bit with distortion is just lovely. That was an amazing tune. If I'm honest, that's the kind of thing that's very inspirational to me. And if I'm honest, I don't know how well I pull it off, but I try to make tracks, now electronica, I suppose you could call it. Not always. I still sometimes, make whatever the fuck I want. A bit of drum and bass, mad bass music. You may have noticed or heard or not, but sometimes, do you know what? It came at a time. I came across these artists, especially at a time when I moved back away from London. And when I was in London, I had this thing that I believed I couldn't make a chilled tune, and I hadn't really managed it. And I'd sit down and try sometimes, and it would just never work. And I was a bit sad because I'd always wanted to make chilled stuff. And then these guys like this, Max Cooper and people like lots of other amazing artists. Anything you can think of in the chilled electronical vein. Inspired me again. I tried, I sat down, and I made a few things that could be considered chilled and also quite good, I guess, if I do say so myself. Anyway, he must have done a gig live at the Acropolis, which must have been pretty epic. That's the place, that's that sort of temple, isn't it, in Greece? And imagine that, the weather and the sort of vibe and of the place must have been amazing. I don't know what the acoustics are like. I don't think it's that. The Acropolis is not what I'm thinking. One of those what are they called? It's not an amphitheatre, is it? Apparently those, the acoustics are amazing. The reason they were built like that was so you could hear the sound at the back of the theatres when there was no amplification in the olden days. But yeah, no, at the Acropolis, and this is Leaving This Place. Nice tune. I'll let it play now. So yeah, another track, which is live at the Apocalypse. Like Apocalypse? Yeah, imagine that. That'd be funny, wouldn't it? Nukes going off everywhere, or some virus, or some alien invasion, and someone's got a gig on. Yeah, come to this live at the Apocalypse. Jokes. The Acropolis, I should say. Amazing Greek temple, and this will be a track, Origins, recorded again at the Acropolis. Live versions. Also very impressed I am when anyone does a live electronical set. Only because I've actually tried and done that once or twice, and it's really hard. When you add modular gear, it's nigh impossible. Unless people don't mind hearing completely insane noodlings. But anyway, here we go. It's Origins. Max Cooper, killing it. So, like any great musical person, he doesn't stick to one kind of sound. You might have noticed earlier a track that was a bit more upbeat, that Penrose Tiling, compared to the sort of more chilled affairs. And yeah, that is, I think, a sign of a good producer. It's range, isn't it? Bit of range. So, moving on to possibly his most hectic, sort of aggressive tune I can think of all. This will be Seething from Human, the album. And this one's a monster. So I'll just let it float at the first and then batter you around the head, as I like to say, after that. Here we go. Yes, brutality of the track there. So he doesn't even, well, I was going to say, all sorts of things doing, types of styles. One thing he doesn't often have is sort of full-on dance beats, I would say, in his tracks. And so yeah, but why not try it and do it? This will be Impacts coming in now with the dance beats. Nice one, very beaty, like I say. I'll let it play now, check it out. Yeah, BT affair. I like the little noises in between the beats as well there. Nice one. So I realised that Max Cooper was, before he was making the sort of more laid-back electronica, and I say laid-back, not always, but you know what I mean. I think, believe it, I say before, sort of was more like a minimal techno producer. I mean, not completely generic, obviously, but like stuff like this coming in now, which I believe is also where I actually first discovered him from. Like, as in when I was more into minimal techno, it was one of my sort of favourite things at the time. And I think I remember coming across this track, Harmonisch Serie, I believe. I'm gonna just hazard a guess that means harmonic series in German. Max Cooper himself British. I don't know why he chose that. Do you know what? I'm not gonna look it up. I'm gonna allow you if you want to look it up on YouTube. But yeah, it's the sort of 4/4 beat and the sort of minimal stuff. I think this is where I first discovered him, like I said already. So I'll let this play now. Harmonische Serie. Yes, nice one. It was the melody that attracted me to this track. The one that's leaving your ears now. So yeah, that's I think where I found him actually originally, which is always a nice thing to remember. You know, if you do remember where you found an artist, especially if it wasn't really recently, then you know it's a sign of they've stuck in your consciousness, haven't they? For whatever reason. So now we have coming in Enveloped. Enveloped is from a single. What single is the word? Again, it's sort of back in that sort of time of like the last track. I think before he sort of switched up styles a little bit. And this is another great sort of track, so I'll let it play. I was enveloped. Next up, we have a track called Seed. This one features another artist by the name of Catherine de Boer. Don't know much about her, if I'm honest, but she has a very beautiful voice. I'm actually just going to briefly look. She's from Australia. Alternative pop singer, she is. She made her first performance in London, UK. Interesting stuff. Yeah, so this is her collaborating famously now with Max Cooper in tracks such as this, Seed. Yes. Good stuff. So we're slowly getting nearer to the end of this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this journey that I've given you through Max Cooper and his stuff. That was a bit loud. Maybe not. This track coming in now. I've just realised. I thought I had a cup of tea brewing that I'd left for ages, but I don't. I'm gonna have to make another one. Coming in now. Distant Light. This one's also from Emergence, the album, which I don't think I actually said about, but the last track was. And the next one, which is the penultimate track, is 2, but I'll let this one play Distant Light. That was Distant Light. So now, coming up in a sec, we'll have the penultimate track of the evening, morning, afternoon, night, early morning, wherever whenever you are, I should say, and wherever you are. I wish you a Maxi Coopery sort of time, and I hope you enjoy it. This was Infinitely Electronic, was what I named the podcast, mainly because he's electronic and he's, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, the title, but also he did this amazing album, I think one of the best that I loved, Yearning for the Infinite. And like I said, the AV show is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, go to YouTube, Live at the Barbican, watch that. I can't advise it enough. It's incredible. If you're into audio-visual stuff at all, I mean, the visuals are just out of this world. I especially appreciate it because I've done that myself, slightly bit of visuals before, and they're done by ultra genii, I should say. Anyway, this is Myth, very super chilled, and then we're on to the last track, which I'll introduce in one sec. So that was Myth, I should say. And then coming in, I'm just going to let play the last track of all. More piano, more chilled, more Max Cooper. Killing it. I'm going to shut up. And you can hear me next episode, if you like. So goodbye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed my tour of the man that is Max Cooper. This is the last track, Remnants, coming in now. Alright, guys and gals, in a bit.